Cool, so now we're going to do this hands-on exercise. Here's the solution to it. So we'll create a new database. And right now, if I look at my databases, I've got those databases. And so the new database can be called anything. So I'm going to do create database, and I will call it ski resort. And now if I look, see my databases, there it is. So now I'm going to switch into ski resort. And now I'm going to create a table resort tickets. And I want to have RT. Did I do this already? No, I did this over at somebody else's computer. RTID, which is going to be an int, primary key, not null. And then I want first, RT first, which will be text, not null. And then RT last, which will be text, not null. And then ticket quantity purchased, that's a lot to type out. RT tick quantity, I'm going to call it. Tick quan, I'm going to do tick quantity, we'll be clear. And that's going to be an int, not null, check, RT tick quantity is greater than 0. And then we have RT tick price is going to be an int, not null. And we'll have RT tick price is greater than 0. And then in my entire one, I need 2 parens at the end there and semicolon. So is that right? Did I make any mistakes? Syntax error, and it's not liking something, right? I forgot check on that last one. Oh yeah, I'm just going to call it tick because I don't want to type out ET, but for clarity maybe add it in. Error, RT tick price does not exist. RT tick price, so I need an E right here so it matches the other one. Cool, I created it, and now I could list my relations, my tables, and I could see that a little bit more. And there it is, ID first, quantity tick price. So all this is on video, Lisa, so you can watch these videos at home. They'll be on YouTube. Though you're making me feel a little bit like a rock star. If only you're pointing the camera at me and not the screen. I could have been Bono if I just learned to play guitar when I was young and sing. You know, there's a lot of really talented musicians, though. Anybody ever get that? I don't know. There should be a name for this malaise, this ennui, right? Ennui. What's another word for ennui? Define. Ennui is a feeling of listlessness and dissatisfaction arising from a lack of occupation or excitement. Malaise. Define. A general feeling of discomfort, illness, or uneasiness whose exact cause is difficult to identify. But like, does anybody ever get that feeling like, oh, I could have done more with my life?
Yeah, I do.
You get that too?
Yeah.
Depression? Right? Like, oh man, if only when I was young, if I'd been more on point.
Yeah.
You know, and just like brought the focus and intensity and work ethic that I have now towards like if I started when I was like in junior high playing guitar, man, unstoppable, right? Could just made music for a living my whole life.
If I had the focus today when I was like 22, boy, my life would have been so different.
Right. Isn't that crazy? So sometimes I'm like, dude, why didn't I believe in myself more? That would have been fun just to make music. But on the other hand, there's a lot of talented musicians and few rock stars. You guys want to hear an interesting story?
Sure.
Now that we're on it, anybody know Pete Best? Anybody know Pete Best? Wiki. Pete Best, Wikipedia. Born 1941 in Scotland. Okay, and let's look at Beatles' first album release date. April 19. Well, Please Please Me, March 22nd, 1963. 1963. When was Pete Best kicked out of the Beatles? August 16th, 1962. The Beatles had a drummer, Pete Best. August 16th, 1962, they kick him out of the band. August 62. March 63, so 7 months later, they release their first album and become worldwide sensations, rock stars. Pete Best falls into a deep depression through the 60s. He tries to kill himself. He's not successful. He's living at home with his mom. He's broke, while the band that he got kicked out of became the most popular band ever in the history of humanity. But then he met a woman. He got married. He had kids. He kept doing what he loved, which was playing the drums. And he released some of his own albums and toured with other bands around Europe. He never became known or famous or rich. And today he is grateful that he got kicked out of the Beatles. He's like, best thing that ever happened to me. It was a hard time for a while, but if I hadn't been kicked out of the Beatles, I would have never met this gal I married and had the wonderful kids I had, and my life is so full and rich now. I'm wealthier than any of those guys who became Beatles. None of them have had great relationships in their lives. None of them have had lasting marriages. All of their kids are messed up. I'm grateful for my life. Best thing that ever happened to me, he says, getting kicked out of the Beatles. Wow! Right? How many people have heard of Megadeth? Dave Mustaine. How many people have heard of him? Dude, Dave Mustaine used to be in Metallica.
Yeah.
And right before Metallica went huge, they kicked him out. They gave him a bus ticket and said, you're leaving. They sent him back to LA. They were in New York.
Thank God they did.
And he was
That's better.
totally angry. And on the bus, he resolved to show them what a terrible error they had made. And he got to LA and he found amazing musicians and he created the band Megadeth. And, they were like, going huge. And he sold out stadiums and he sold 80 million records. And he talked to Dave Mustaine today. He was interviewed and he started crying. He feels like a failure. Because his goal was to beat Metallica. And he only sold 80 million records and Metallica sold 350 million. And he feels like a failure. Even though he has millions of dollars and he's one of the most influential musicians in the history of music, he feels like a failure. Pete Best feels like a success, right? Never made money, never became known as a musician. Dave Mustaine, one of the greatest musicians ever, feels like a failure because he's comparing himself to Metallica. It's crazy. The human mind is crazy. Your happiness and your sadness, right? It's all just a matter of perspective. Shakespeare said, nothing is good nor bad, but the mind makes it so. It's interesting stories, aren't they?
They are.
I just had to share those. Megadeth total record sales. 38 million records worldwide. That's not that great. Metallica total album sales. 125 million. So I had my numbers wrong. You like Megadeth better than Metallica? Cool. All right, back to our normal programming. Ski resort. What did we do? We created a table. Now we have to insert records into the table, right? So what did I say we were going to insert into it? Oh, so I didn't say anything, so we just have to do that. Insert into, and this is called resort tickets and values. And I'm going to insert 1 and James and bond and ticket quantity 7, of course, and ticket price 7. And then we have 2, and we have Jenny Moneypenny, and she bought 9 at 7. And I think that's enough records. We just need 2. Is that correct? Did I miss anything? Does it all look right? Oh, we should do one more just for fun. And this will be Madame Bovary. And Madame Bovary's buying nothing. And there's an error. Failing row contains 3 Madame Bovary 00. So we'll change that to 2 and 7. We charged her more because we didn't like reading about her in high school. So now we have our record, so we could check that. Lisa, select star from resort tickets. You can see our records there. And now we have to do our select statement. Select, and we want first and last as customer. So we want RT first. Okay, I gotta see my fields. So to see my fields, and it's what was the database called? Resort tickets. All right, now I'm gonna do select RT first. RT last as, and what's that going to be? Customer. I'm just going to check that and see if it runs. So didn't like it, and select RT first does not exist. Oh, from customers, as customer from resort tickets. Cool, so that worked, right? So let me see my table fields again, and then bring up that query. So we got that one working. And the next one is returns ticket quantity, price per ticket as total transaction value. And so we're going to do RT tick quantity times RT tick price as, I'm just going to call it total, close enough, and do from customers, no, what is it? From resort tickets. So that worked. So you can test these as you go. And now we're going to do return customer spent as phrase. This one's going to be long. RT I'm going to do it like this. Customer, because I didn't. I'm leaving a space there. Pipe it. Customer, and then RT first. Pipe it. Space. Pipe it. And RT last. Customer James Bond, and then pipe it. Spent RT tick quantity times RT tick price. Pipe it. And I guess I had the $sign there. And we're going to do that as phrase from resort tickets. Does that look right? RT first, select RT first, space, RT last as customer, RT tick quantity, RT tick price as total. Customer, James, space, bond, spent dollars, this as phrase from resort tickets. How many people got it? Sweet. How many people really enjoyed the struggle? Sweet. Good deal. How many people like learning about Pete Best? How many people like learning about Dave Mustaine? How many people remember the moral of the story? What's the moral of the story?
Make money, be sad.
Woo.
Make money, be sad. I want to make so much money it ruins my life.
Yeah.
You need balance.
Everything's perspective, man. Nothing is good or bad, but the mind makes it so. That's the moral of the story. Everything's perspective. Nothing is good nor bad, but the mind makes it so.